Live from the Pitch Pad in New York City. Get ready to unleash your inner entrepreneur with Pitch Live with Amy Summers. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the Shark Tank, this is the place to be to discover how to turn your pitch into reality. Fasten your seatbelts, pitch stars, because the spotlight is on you and we are about to make success happen. Get ready for Pitch Live in 3, 2, 1. Well, welcome to Pitch Live. I'm your host, Amy Summers, founder and president of Pitch Publicity and Vox. And I'm also a hardworking entrepreneur who's passionate about helping you reach success at any area in your life. And I know that is possible after decades of experience in perfecting the pitch and enhancing communication skills, which is why I'm here today and joined by Victoria Najmy, who is a former and forever pitch star, having completed our internship mentorship program at Pitch Publicity in 2016. I first met Victoria when she interviewed with me for our internship mentorship position. And she was only with us for one semester, that fall semester of 2016. But I remember it being a very powerful semester. Don't you, Victoria? I feel like we did a lot in that one semester.
Yes, it is crazy that it was only one semester because it does feel like it was a lot of stuff we packed in there.
I know. I often think back to you, and I actually vividly remember you telling me at the end of the semester, okay, I'm going to go get some other experience now. And I was just like shocked. I was like, she doesn't want to stay with me. Oh, did I do something wrong? But I think that's just, that memory I have of you is and watching you in your whole career, you're just very driven like that. Like you know when to move on, which is really cool. I don't even know if you know that about yourself, but you're just very confident in that way. And you were able to gain a lot of different experiences. And after you graduated from the University of Florida in 2018 with a degree in advertising, you've gone on to do some really stellar things in your career, including working in the advertising industry in New York City, which is a lot of people's dream to do. You've done it. You've worked on projects with brands such as Starbucks and MAC Cosmetics and Etsy and Gatorade. Good old Gatorade. You had some UF connections there, I'm sure. And now I'm really excited for this next phase in Victoria's career as she is really branching out as an entrepreneur with her own company, offering scalable solutions for marketing and advertising needs for both brands and agencies. I might even have to hire her. We're talking about that right now. So it's all coming full circle here, Victoria. I'll try not to just hire you for a semester, though. We'll see if we can go along. But welcome. I'm so excited to have you here and kind of dissect how you make success happen, or as we always call it, MSH. So let's get into it. I remember that first project. Do you remember that first project you did at Pitch Publicity?
Yes, I do. It was for Danny Warfel, which my dad was very excited that I was working on it. He also went to UF. I admittedly wasn't very tuned into who Danny Warfel was at the time, which is not very Gator of me. But after that, I very much so knew who he was and knew that everybody knew who he was. But it was a very cool project and something that was just an awesome thing to start on, especially just being like attending UF at the time.
Yeah, we definitely scored some parent points right at the beginning with that project for sure. And I remember, I kind of threw you into it, but just to give everyone a little bit of background in case other people don't know who Danny Warfel is, and Danny would laugh about this, but if there was social media at the time when Danny was going to the University of Florida and he was quarterback for the Gators. And he won the first national title that the Gators ever, was awarded, was under his leadership as quarterback. Had we had social media at that time, he would be just as famous as Tim Tebow. He even always shares that story, but we did not have social media. And Danny was in school with me. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Danny was a PR major as well. And I remember him being in one of my PR classes. He would always sit in the very front row seat because I mean, he's
Wow.
quarterback of the University of Florida. So where else would you sit? And of course, many people may or may not know this, but the PR classes are filled with women. Like there's not that many men that are PR majors. And so the whole classroom was filled with all these women, a sprinkling of men, and then there's Danny right in the front. And so we actually never knew each other in college because it was like Danny, a line of women, and then, like me. And I guess I wasn't that motivated at that time to try to date the quarterback. But we met later in our careers. And when he found out that I went to UF and we went at the same time, it was like, okay, we have to work together. So we did a lot of pro bono projects for Desire Street Ministries, which is the organization that Danny now runs. And when Victoria was interning with me, we were helping him out on his annual fundraiser that he does for the Georgia-Florida game, or I should say Florida-Georgia game, because I am a Gator. And I remember you coming into that. You set up a lot of media for him. You had a golf tournament. There was a fundraising event. Since that was a first assignment and it was really quite an immersion into everything about pitching and, you're pitching media, you saw them showing up. Do you remember what your first impressions of the PR profession was at that time? Because you were an advertising major. Like, what was going through your head?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the whole experience in pitching was new to me. I I tell people this now and they're always shocked to hear this, but I used to be very shy and quiet and just getting on the phone and doing the like cold calling and then eventually going to the event and talking to people in real life. It was definitely out of my comfort zone. Um, and I think part of this internship, what it really helped me learn is kind of thinking on your feet and coming up with witty responses and being able to kind of talk to people and get them to buy in on what you're trying to sell them or tell them about or get them to see the value. And so I think that was my at least biggest takeaway and my first like real understanding of pitching and public relations. Prior to that, in my advertising classes and other experiences that I had with advertising, it's a lot more doing and not a lot of the event side of it, or the actual being there with the people that you're working for or working with. And so being at that event, being able to pitch it first, get that first jolt of excitement of like, wow, I got this and I booked this thing for this event and these people are coming. And then seeing it all come to life was very cool. My biggest memory or my first memory, I think, from that event was that there was somebody there from Dancing with the Stars.
Oh yeah,
And
Tony Devilotti.
yeah. And I thought that was so cool. Like, I was like, this is a celebrity sighting. I followed him on Instagram. I think I still follow him on Instagram, and I have kept up with that man's life ever since. And I saw him in person, and I honestly, it wasn't that I watched Dancing with the Stars, but you just told me about him. And I was like, this is the coolest thing I have ever done.
And then your mom was impressed. So we had your dad
Yeah,
impressed with Danny Warfel, and your mom was impressed.
right,
We had
exactly.
Tony Devilotti there. One of the things that I also vividly remember in my experience with you was actually at that event. So it's a very dress up, kind of formal event, in Ponte Vedra, Jacksonville, and at a very fancy hotel. And we had to get dressed up for it, but we were also kind of, networking and running the event with the media and such. But I remember you just kind of like wide eye looking at me at some point and said, "I've never been to anything like this," and I was a little shocked because I was thinking, okay, Victoria, I kind of feel like you come from a good family, and I was thinking like, why hasn't she been to an event like this? You were also president of your sorority,
Yeah.
but but can you kind of explain what the difference was in going to a professional event versus what you had seen before, and why? How did that particular experience, shape what you did in the future?
Yeah. I mean, so I'm trying to think back and think if I really had never been to an event like that before. And I guess I really hadn't. And I think maybe what I more so meant at the time is I had never been on that side of the event before. And I think it's so different attending an event versus being a part of like the behind the scenes of the event and making sure that the event is going smoothly and the things that you set out to happen there are happening and all the people that I booked to get there were there and all of those kind of things. And I think that was the new experience for me, especially the having the professional conversations in a social setting was new. And I think that prior to that, all the professional conversations I had were in professional settings, which is something that you don't really think about, that it's going to change into those social settings at that stage in life. I mean, I think I was a junior in college at the time, maybe even a sophomore,
I think you
junior
might have been a
college.
sophomore.
Yeah, and I had had interviews before. I had been in like involvement things. Like you said, I was becoming president of my sorority, but I had never been at an event like that where it was kind of work and play at the same time. And so that was really interesting for me and also a very good experience to have because once I moved to New York, that's kind of what everything ends up being. There's a ton of like industry events, there's networking events and things like that. And that was my first time experiencing that and having to mingle and socialize and make sure that people were having a good time, but then also run around and make sure all the things were supposed to be happening.
So you got some experience right off the bat. You also got a lot of pitching experience. I want to talk about more about the not so glamorous side of PR. You know, that the glamorous side is always the event and celebrities showing up and having media show up and getting to meet them. But the not so glamorous side that a lot of people don't see is just the phone work and pitching on the phone. Can you tell me what your most memorable pitching accomplishment was during the internship that kind of sticks out to you?
Yeah. So I said this before, but speaking on the phone and just like having that kind of professional conversations with people I was shy and it was new to me. And it was something I had to like really practice and think about before I got on these calls with people. And so the Danny Warfel event was my first thing. That one, I will say, was a little bit easier because people were excited. It was for the Florida Georgia game. People knew who Danny Warfel was. So getting those done was actually a good kind of stepping stone. I think the bigger and more what I felt more accomplished about was after that. Once I started taking or being on the clients that were not Danny Warfel and not a client that everybody knew and booking those media conversations and talking to those different people and getting them to buy in on what I was telling them about. That was the real accomplishment. The Danny Warfel stuff was the cool, glamorous side. And then that kind of gave me the confidence to know, okay, I can do this. I can get on the phone and have a conversation with somebody. It's not the scariest thing in the world. They're going to say something, and the worst that they're going to say is, no, we're not interested. And the best that they're going to say is, yes, we are interested. Let's set it up. And then it's great.
When you got those no's, I know I always am teaching about overcoming objections. What did you learn about overcoming objections through pitching?
Yeah, I think so. I am definitely a perfectionist, and getting the answer no can be tough. It's a little bit of you kind of feel like it's a hit to the ego almost, even though there are so many reasons that they could end up saying no. I think what it really taught me is to kind of think back on what I was doing and how did I approach that conversation? What were the key things that they seemed to latch on to? What things maybe turn them away? And kind of see how the conversation went and the key points that I could then use for the next conversation and the next one. And how does just changing little things shift how somebody is reacting to it? And I think that that's important in all parts of life and your career, is that things are not always going to work out the first time, and you kind of have to adjust the way your approach based on the scenario that you're in. And I think that was a very clear example of that, and one of my first examples of that, of really being able to see how kind of thinking back and adjusting and revisiting and then implementing new strategies can really make an impact as you keep moving forward.
Yeah, you actually bring up a really important point, and that is verbal pitching. And I think With each year, we get further and further away from really using the phone for what it was originally intended to do, which is to call people. And, so much of us, whether you're in PR or in any other industry, rely a lot on emailing people and pitching in that way. But I always say you can get some FaceTime with somebody, or you can at least get some voice time with them and get on the phone. There's so much you can learn about what is resonating with them and what's not resonating with them, that even if they don't buy into your pitch, that is valuable information for the next time you pitch someone. Would you agree with that? Have you found that to be true in your career now?
Yeah, definitely. I honestly, I think that the phone and even Zoom calls, but or being in person, I think that it's so important in a professional setting to really understand, yeah, how people are reacting. What are they gravitating toward? What is their face saying to you? Or what is the tone of their voice saying, which you don't get any of that via email. And I think it's really important for learning as well, like especially seeing your mentors and how they handle those kind of situations. How do they analyze what the other person is, how they're reacting to them, and how do they approach a situation? I think that's so important to be able to see and hear as well.
So let's fast forward a little bit. I want to talk about your time at the advertising agencies. What skills did you take from, let's say, the pitch internship, like some of this pitching stuff, into your career, and what did you apply there, and how did you use it?
I think that the first skill that I took with pitching really was in the interview stage of like getting my first job out of college, and any job. I mean, when you're in an interview setting, you're pitching yourself. And I think that again, I've mentioned the being able to speak on the phone and come up with responses and being able to have that professional um, conversation. That I think has been the most valuable experience that I got out of pitching. And then I think as you move forward in your career, once you're past that interview, once you get the job, there's then that level of kind of pitching yourself even more. You have to pitch yourself to get a promotion. You have to speak up in a client meeting to get them to listen to what you're saying. And I think all of that, I mean, I think that pitching sounds like a niche topic, but it actually plays such a role in every part of life and every part of your career, and my career especially.
What's been one of your proudest pitching moments in your advertising career in New York?
So I actually think, I mean, I was talking about interviewing, but I recently, a year ago, decided to move or shift my career and start working as a freelancer and I get hired as a contractor at different advertising agencies or brands. And I think that my proudest thing is that with that, it's not a full-time job. I'm contracted on certain projects for a limited amount of time. And there was 1 week last year that I didn't have a job. And that's really scary. And that's the fear that you have when you go into this freelancing contractor life, is that you won't have a job at one point and you won't have that kind of security of having something stable. And what I did that week was that was my week of pitching myself, reaching out to every person that I had ever came in contact with, whether that was in college, when I first moved to New York, in my first job, people that I interacted with. I reached out to hundreds of people via email, LinkedIn, and set up these phone calls that I posed as, I'd love to chat with you about your career and how you've gotten here. And then I sprinkled in my pitch, which was, this is everything I've done and where I want to go and how I could be beneficial to you. And since then, that has been the only week that I have not had a job. And it kind of set me up for success in this freelancing contractor world, because now more often than not, I'm turning down jobs and not reaching out for jobs. And I kind of set myself up so that people knew that I was available, knew that I was doing this. And that I'm really proud of that, because the biggest thing that people told me when I was asking for advice before I made this jump into freelancing world is that there will be times where you won't have a job. And be careful of that. And I saw other people like having to work at a restaurant or having to get a part-time job just to fill the space. And I'm really proud that I was able to kind of set myself up for success in that 1 week that I did have that lull and use my pitching skills to set up the rest of the year.
Yeah, it really lights a fire when you can't buy groceries. You got to figure out,
Yeah,
you have to
definitely.
figure out how to MSH and make shit happen like immediately. I mean, I even remember that when I started Pitch, I had some clients, but as it was going along, I was like, I wasn't thinking that this was going to turn into a thing, and it was turning into a thing. And then suddenly I got like really nervous, and I was like, I need to get some clients. I can still remember to this day just sitting in my, extra office/bedroom on the floor. I didn't even have a desk. And I had just a list of, contacts in business. And I was just calling through. And I think it's so vivid because, I mean, it's a hard thing to do, right? Really putting yourself out
Yeah,
there. But like you experienced, I think that's the last time I ever had to pitch myself so hard was at the very beginning of Pitch. And it goes to show like how much it can really make a difference. But yeah, that's a great story. It takes a lot of gumption to do that. And people come to me all the time about starting their own businesses and when they should do it. And I always tell them, it's better just to jump off the deep end and go into it with not as a side hustle, like just go.
mhm,
If you don't do it, then it'll take a lot longer for that side hustle to develop.
totally. Yeah, I mean, it also just requires to get what you want out of it, which is if you're starting your own business, you want that to be your full-time thing. You have to put full-time work into it for it to become full-time worthy, basically. And if it's just a side hustle, there's no way to make it as big as you want it to be if you're only putting in a few hours a day. And it's obviously, I was at the time when I started this freelancing, I was very privileged that I was able to kind of just take that jump and quit my full-time job and just start it. But it was the best decision I made.
And, we obviously have a mentorship relationship. I've known you for a long time. But I know mentorship is really, it's very strategic to have good mentors as you're becoming an entrepreneur, as you're kind of venturing into this. What type of mentors are you seeking right now? And how do you find professionals to mentor you?
Yeah, I think that the mentors that I have been seeking, I it kind of ebbs and flows with where I'm at in my life, and I end up seeking out mentorship where the people that I'm reaching out to are kind of where I want to be. So before I started freelancing, I reached out to many people who were already doing it and kind of talked to them about what is the best way to do this? How do you get paid? How much do you charge? How do you do it? Basically, how'd you get here? And so I think that's where I was about a year ago was how do I do this? And now I'm kind of here. And I think the mentors that I'm seeking now are the people who have gone beyond that. And I mentioned that this is like a freelancing contractor, but I'm trying to grow it into being its own business. And so now the mentors that I'm seeking are people who have started their own businesses, who have grown something small into something much bigger. And I am a very big proponent of cold reaching out to people, and that's how I find mentors or asking my network to connect me with somebody. I mean, I said this before, but I will reach out to anybody on LinkedIn and say, can we chat or can we go to coffee or anything like that? And I think there's it's a little scary to do stuff like that because again, the fear is that they'll say no, but that's the worst thing they can say is no, or just that they don't respond. But odds are somebody's going to respond. And that's kind of how I've been approaching it. And then aside from just cold reaching out, I've been asking people that I already know, do you know anybody who you think would be a really good person for me to talk to or that has done this before or you think that we have similar qualities or anything like that? And that has honestly gotten me pretty far as well. Like the people that you're connected with, especially if you have a good working relationship or friendship with them, are more than happy to connect you with other people that they have good working relationships and friendships with. People want to connect people. They want their colleagues and their friends to meet other new colleagues and friends that are going to help both sides.
Yeah, I think that's like one of the best ways is if you can get
Mhm.
connected by someone, especially somebody that already has a strong relationship with the person you're trying to reach out, they're more likely
Yeah.
to respond immediately. And then, I know some professionals that are very guarded with their contacts and they're not going to just do it with anybody. So, there is sometimes, depending on what level of mentor you're um, trying to reach, there might be some relationship building you have to do a little bit with the person that you're going to ask. I mean, I
Yeah.
have some people on LinkedIn that's just, I guess they troll all my contacts and they're like, hey, can you connect me to this person? I mean, I'm like, I've never even spoken to you like since
Yeah.
10 years ago at some conference one time. So
Right.
would you agree with that? Some relationship building that has to take place to set that up a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that if the person that you're reaching out to is going to vouch for you and be on your behalf and connect you with this other person, they want to know you first. They want to make sure that you're you're going to reflect well on them as well. They don't want to connect you with somebody and then you end up flaking out on it or not actually following through on the thing that you're looking for or anything like that. And then I also think that like again, people like having a connection with people and they want to they they don't there's not like it's kind of weird to just connect you with somebody else if they don't have the connection with you in the first place. So I really I think it is important to establish a relationship with somebody um before asking them to connect you with other people. And also once they get to know you, they might have a better person in mind to connect you with. You might be looking at somebody might be looking at your LinkedIn connections and say, "Oh, that person is the best person. Please connect me." But once you speak to them, you might realize, oh my gosh, you have all of these same qualities. You're interested in the same things. I actually want to connect you with this other person. And that would end up being a even more successful relationship for them.
Let's talk about those cold pitches that you do on LinkedIn when you're reaching out. Um, Give us exactly what you do. Like, so this is somebody that you don't know. Do you spend any time researching them a little bit? What do you say? Because unless you have the premium LinkedIn, and even if you have the premium LinkedIn, you have a minimum amount of, word count that you can send a message. What's your go-to when you're reaching out to someone cold? Give somebody exactly what to do.
So I definitely research them. I will click on every single link that they have in their about section on LinkedIn. I will go through their school. I will go through every past job that they have had. I'll look at if we have any connections. I definitely do some research on them. Yeah, it is true that if you don't have premium LinkedIn, you can't send a message, which I don't have premium LinkedIn. And I honestly avoid sending long messages just because I don't often think that people are going to read them. So what I end up doing is I just connect with them and I'll write a note with the connection and say, "Hey, saw that you like are interested in the same thing. I'm interested in this as well. Would love to stay on your radar for the future, or like would love to connect with you." Um, for often, I mean, I guess when that week that I was trying to like pitch myself and make all the do these like informational phone calls with people, I was saying, "Hey, I just started freelancing. Would love to stay on your radar if you need anyone in the future." And I try to keep it short and sweet. And I mean, you only have a certain amount of characters that you can use, but I just say like, "Would love to stay connected if anything happens in the future that you need someone kind of like me." And then hopefully they answer it. And then if they just accept you and they don't answer, then I stay present in their feed. I'll like their post, I'll keep tabs on the kind of work that they're doing. If they post something like new work that they just did that I really like, I'll comment on it. I'll write to them and say, "This was really great. Like, this was an awesome thing that you just worked on. I'd love to hear more about it." or I'd love to hear how you got here, or who did you work with on this? Like, what in my field, it's a lot of like directors and editors. Did you like the directors that you worked with? Things like that, to kind of just have a normal conversation about something I'm actually interested in and they're actually interested in, to kind of break that seal. And most of the time people do respond. Um, and then
you bring up a really good point that I just don't want to pass by so easily, but it's really important that once you do connect with people, that you do continue to network with them online. And what you just said about, liking something that they post, I'll even go as far as sharing something that they post. And let me tell you, like, if somebody wrote an article and you shared it to your network, they'll notice that, because I
yeah,
notice, I mean, as busy as I am, I I look at whoever comments on any of my posts, whoever shares it, whoever, I am paying so much attention to my metrics. So if your name is continually popping up and we don't know each other that well, I'm going to feel like I know you, so that when you do
mhm,
approach me eventually, there's that familiarity. And then the other thing that you said that I think is important is that line about, I just want to stay on your radar. I use that a lot too when I run into people on LinkedIn. Maybe I don't know what I need from them yet, but I just know that maybe we do similar type of work, or that in the future I might want to, collaborate with them. I will do that same thing, because I'll, at least if we're connected and I'm on their radar, then they're seeing everything on my feed, and they're getting
yeah.
to know me before it may be 2 years before I do that project that I was thinking about them for. But now at least we have some kind of relationship. And I think that that's just really
Right.
smart virtual networking skills that you have.
Yeah. And I think with that, it's like a lot of people, you never know what somebody else is doing on the other side of their screen. And when I think about myself, I'm like so busy, quickly scrolling through LinkedIn. I'll be between a million emails, kind of doing it on the side. And if somebody wants something from me right then, I'm more likely to ignore it. But if somebody's like, I just want to connect and stay on your radar, at that moment, I might not have anything on my radar. But in 2 months, when I need, for example, I work with a lot of like freelance editors or things like that. If an editor connected with me and said, I want to stay on your radar, I don't need them now, but in a month or two, I need an editor. I'm like, oh yeah, that one editor reached out to me. And that's people reaching out to me, which also happens. And then it happens as well from my end. I'll reach out to somebody and say, I want to stay on your radar. And then in a month or two, they'll be like, oh, I need a producer. I need somebody to help me with this marketing thing. And think back to my little LinkedIn message.
Well, I want to kind of go back to your college years one more time before we wrap up. And if you look back on your college years and your career thus far, how has mentorship played a role, and what mentorship relationships do you see as being most impactful to bring you to where you are today, and starting your own business?
I think mentorship has played a huge role. I think that at every step between college to now, I have really seeked out different mentors at different stages. I mean, even I've been connected with you since 2016, which is crazy that it feels so long ago at this point, and we stay in contact. And I've reached out to you before about advice and things like that. And I think that having those kind of relationships with people have just been so important. And almost every job that I've gotten has been from some sort of mentor relationship, because I've reached out to somebody to ask for advice, or I've been talking to them about something that I'm interested in. And it's not always somebody that is way more experienced than me. So the other day I reached out to somebody who was, I think, 2 years older than me in school, just to ask their advice on how to approach this marketing idea. And it's not always somebody who's so far out there, or you feel like they're so much further ahead than you are. It's even peers. And I think that being able to have those types of people to go to ask for advice, to ask, to just chat with, is so important, and definitely has excelled my career and helped me get to where I am.
And you're right. It definitely goes both ways because I reach out to people that are much younger than me, like Victoria, all the time, because there's things that I need to learn about their world that really will help me in projects that I'm doing. So, Victoria,
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I know that you have inspired so many people with your career journey, and just how you've approached mentorship is just you've really attacked it. And I think that that's a large part of why you're so successful, but you really have this roadmap in your head. And I'm so excited to be not only on the journey with you still, but there when you started it. And I can't wait to see what comes about in the future. And I want to encourage everyone to share this episode so we can get more people exposed and inspired to the things that Victoria is doing. Be sure to follow her on LinkedIn. Now you know how to connect with her. She just gave you all the secrets. And then also be sure to follow her on Instagram. And we're going to put all of these notes in our show notes. But before we leave, tell us what is the best way for people to connect with you now that we have you on, and what type of pitches are you on the lookout for yourself?
I think the best way to connect with me professionally is actually LinkedIn. Um, Also Instagram, feel free to reach out. I am also always open to a cold email, so we can include my email address in the notes as well. The pitches that I am on the lookout for, I mentioned the freelancing, but I'm trying to expand my freelancing and contracting endeavor into bigger projects and kind of taking on different branding, marketing, and advertising projects as a whole, and kind of as in a team structure where I can kind of build a team to tackle whatever need that is. And so those are the types of projects that I'm looking to do, and I'm really excited about what's coming up.
All right. Well, you know how to pitch Victoria now. And thank you for joining us on this episode of Pitch Live with Amy Summers. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, give us a rating or review. Your feedback really helps us plan future episodes. And I hope you were inspired today to get out there, advocate for yourself, make success happen. As a bonus, join us at amycvox.com where you can get motivated, hone your communication skills, and binge as much mentorship as you want whenever you need it. The link is in the show notes, along with all the social media handles that we were trying to give out together, Victoria and I. So let's stay connected. And I know I'll be seeing more of Victoria soon. And we hope to see more of you. So until next time, let's MSH.